You sat on the couch in the living room watching a scary movie. Mordecai looked at your terrified expression and smiled, playfully punching you in the arm. "Come on, dude, you're more scared of this lame movie than Rigby is," he said. You fake pouted and crossed your arms. "Am not," you replied, looking over at Rigby, who was bundled up inside of a blue blanket. You giggled and pointed at him. "I'm more scared than that," you said with a smile. You and Mordecai laughed, and Rigby whimpered. "You guys are mean." He pouted and curled more into the blanket. Suddenly, a horrifying scene in the movie appeared in front of you, and you and Rigby screeched in fear. Rigby pulled the blanket off and ran upstairs into his room. Out of fear, you accidentally jumped into Mordecai's lap and nuzzled into his neck. Mordecai chuckled and patted your hair. Your name?" he said. You looked up at him and blushed wildly. "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry," you immediately said, hopping off his lap. "Dude, it's cool." Mordecai pulled you closer to him and wrapped his arm around you. You were blushing 50 shades of red. Thanks, you nervously stuttered. You had about 50 more minutes left of the movie before you fell asleep. Mordecai looked over at the adorable sight before him and smiled. He picked you up and carried you to his bedroom and laid you on the bed. Mordecai knelt down and kissed you on the head. "Good night," he said before exiting and sleeping on the couch. Magical time skip. You woke up the next morning and looked out the window at the sunlight. You looked over at Rigby, who was asleep on his teeny tiny trampoline that barely was big enough to support him. You giggled at how cute the 23-year-old looked when he was asleep. His hands were over his face, and his light brown hair was slightly messed and flowered over his face. Slowly, you crept downstairs and saw that Mordecai was already awake and was eating cereal on the couch. "Good morning, your name," he said, called to you without turning around. "How do you know it's me every time I spend the night here?" you asked. Mordecai smiled and turned around. "Because I just know." Mordecai smiled and patted a spot next to him for you to sit near. You hesitantly sat next to your friend and smiled back. Mordecai swallowed a lump in his throat and looked at you. You were wearing the same outfit that you had on last night. Your favorite color t-shirt and black skinny jeans. You noticed that Mordecai was looking at you and snapped his fingers in his face. "Hey, Earth to Mordecai, what's wrong?" You looked at him with concern. Mordecai shook his head. Nothing, he replied. You raised an eyebrow and smiled at him. "Hey, be my bitch for me and fix me a bowl of cereal, would ya?" You said while plopping down on the couch. "Fine." Mordecai groaned and stood to make you some cereal. "Good morning, everyone," Benson called out as he walked through the door. "Good morning, Benson," you smiled. Benson laid his jacket on the couch and fingered through his pink hair. "Hey, Benson." Mordecai came out of the kitchen and handed you a bowl of cereal. "Morning," Benson replied. "Is slacker number 2 still asleep?" Benson sat at the kitchen table and groaned. "Name." "This table's all sticky and gross," Benson complained. You sighed and rolled your eyes. "I'll clean it after I'm done eating breakfast." Benson groaned and went upstairs. "Hey, your name?" Mordecai looked at you and rubbed the back of his head nervously. "Yeah?" You looked over at Mordecai in confusion. At that moment, Rigby rushed down the stairs without a shirt on. Benson followed suit. "What the F, Benson?" Rigby sneered. "Time to get up, slacker," Benson simply stated. Rigby groaned and pulled the brown shirt he held in his hand over his head. You turned back to your cereal and absent-mindedly forgot about what Mordecai was saying. After the morning was over, you got to work being the housemaid, cleaning your room, the living room, the kitchen, and the bathrooms. You were almost done. All you had to do was clean Mordecai and Rigby's room. You knocked softly on the door to make sure they weren't slacking off in there. When they didn't reply, you simply walked in. The room was a mess. Clothes piled all over the floor, shoes bundled up in the closet and covered up with underwear. You groaned and started picking up their mess. You tripped over and fell over a box that was hiding under some clothes. You stood and picked it up. It was a small box that had red wrapping paper and a gold ribbon around it. On the underside was your name written on it in beautiful cursive. You carefully unwrapped the box and opened it. You gasped and pulled a gold chain out of the box. Attached to the chain was a golden heart and a small golden key. Engraved in the heart were the words, "I love you." The door room creaked open, and you turned to see Mordecai standing in the doorway, blushing wildly. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to pry," you said quickly. "It's okay, your name." Mordecai took the necklace out of your hands and put it around your neck. "You look beautiful." He turned you towards the big mirror. You blushed deeply and looked at him. "I love you too, Mordecai," you said quietly. Mordecai smiled and kissed your head. You hugged him and smiled.